award goes to mainstream media for protecting us all from reality. The Kate Dalley Show starts now.
He is ready to rumble. I will tell you, this speech tonight will be classic Donald J. Trump. It'll be funny. It'll be entertaining. There will be some shots fired tonight in the room. So everyone should tune in. It's going to be really great. I'm looking forward to hearing.
All right. That was a weird. Okay, I don't care who you are. That was a weird clip. That was Carolyn Levitt. I don't have anything against Carolyn Levitt. It's just that was a really sorry, but that was really weird. There's going to be shots fired tonight in this room. I was like, okay, I get why somebody would say that, but it still was weird that shots were fired, supposedly. Okay, so welcome to the show. You know I have a different take than anyone else, and after doing, multiple deep dives and different things, I've got a lot of info for you. And so this will be kind of an interesting show. It might not be very long today because I'm not feeling great and I wasn't going to come in, but I told you I would. So here I am. So there's a lot to discuss in talking about all the different connector points. Okay. So I have some really good info for you to just kind of think about. Today's show is really thinking outside the box and sort of drawing outside the lines a little bit of your mainstream media, which it is every day, but today is it's going to be interesting for you for sure. Okay. So let's get started. When it comes to and whenever I'm talking about the White House, I'm not talking about Trump. I'm talking about the people behind Trump, the ones calling the shots. Trump isn't calling the shots. He hasn't ever called the shots. I know a lot of people still have a really hard time coming to grips with that. It's okay. You can make him the enemy, but he's really not the enemy. It's the deep state. So let's focus on the right person. But David Wilcox actually had a really great kind of summary for how they think. And so I'm going to start there. And then I'm going to talk about the shooting, the ballroom, the new ballroom. I have some thoughts about it and a little history that you're going to want to understand. And then, of course, a little bit on Iran too. So here's David Wilcox talking about, or I guess the late David Wilcox. You never know anymore if people are actually dead or not, or what's going on. So I'm always just going to go with allegedly because I don't know. But here is the deal. Are scientists dying? Are there a lot of scientists dying? I don't know. It seems that way. I mean, we had a lot of naturopaths die in very, very weird ways. Almost 100 of them, or just over 100 of them, 5 years before the COVID lie. So could people be dying now because of blue beam coming out later? Possible. It's possible. Okay. So here we go. Here's David Wilcox talking about how the deep state think, because you got to get into the brain of the deep state, don't you? Okay. So here we go.
These people honestly believe that they are the descendants of gods, that they are the chosen, that they are God's special people, that we are delusional, and that the true creator is this wisdom principle that they think of as Lucifer. That wisdom principle gave us ancient mystery school teachings, and that the enemy, which they call Adonai, the adversary, which we would call the Christian God, came to try to defeat them. Then they even take it a step further and they look at texts like the Bible and they say that where it says in the end times that God will take the money from the wicked and restore it to the just, that we as a planet are the wicked and they are the just. So this is how they justify their financial corruption. They don't believe that we deserve the money. In fact, they believe that if they did not dominate us and if they did not control us and play all these games, that we left to our own devices would destroy our planet. So in some twisted rationale, they believe they are saving the earth. They believe humans are bad for the environment. We cause pollution, so they have to reduce population. Then they seed that into movies like The Matrix, where Agent Smith says that humans are like a virus on the planet. This is one of a variety of ways in which they will usually embed their teachings into the villain.
So interesting clip, right? I mean, you kind of have to acknowledge that they might think a lot differently than us, and that they think that we're such idiots and morons, and they brainwashed us into being idiots and morons that that they have to save us, and in order to save us, they're kind of serving up their plans to Lucifer because God isn't real and they are the gods of the world and so forth. So the thinking could be very demonic. He could be very right about how he discloses that was David Wilcox, or the late David Wilcox, how he was disclosing how they operate, how they think, because I think they truly do think that what they're doing is noble, even though we know a little bit more about what it is. So interesting. Okay. Okay. So let's talk a little bit. I'm going to shift a little bit to the shooting. That was an interesting, that was an interesting one. I don't mean to laugh. It's just that to me, it seemed really, really fake. And I know I said yesterday that the conservative talk show host, you can kind of tell who's batting for whose team. And I don't mean sexually. I mean, I mean just who's on the media trained team of the conservatives, because you have a lot of conservative hosts going, how dare you question it? Trump's life was in danger, and how dare you? And as a conservative, I can tell you that if we don't start thinking about these things, and we don't start kind of understanding what's going on, and still be bold enough to say what's true, we're just going to be in a world of hurt. So liberals have a tough time separating emotion out or examining history. Conservatives have a tough time with sort of getting out of the tribe mentality and really examining things too. So there's kind of a deep think problem that we have. Okay, so so this was an interesting shooting because there was the guy that was doing the little trick, and Trump seemed to be reading the card instead of just glancing at it. It's supposed to be just like a one word thing. Anyway, there was just a lot of weird things that kind of signaled go time. And then there was an article today talking about Trump claims gala shooting gives urgency to White House ballroom plan. So really wants that ballroom. He wants to get that, he's had the go ahead, I think, but he really wants it built. Okay. And so you kind of have to ask yourself, really strange that the gala shooting, it wasn't like I feared for my life. It was more like, I need that ballroom. I need the ballroom done. So why is that? So I was looking into this, and this is going to be 1,000-seat ballroom at the White House. And it's this new urgency. Now, let's kind of just go up a couple of levels here. Now let's look down on this project. Out of all the things that you could probably imagine us doing or working on right now, would it be a ballroom? No. And I think conservatives need to be kind of honest about that as they start to ask questions, because there's no reason for a ballroom. What's the reason? Okay. It's really quite stupid. So why are we focused on this? And why there are so many articles today talking about the need, the urgency, the need, the urgency. So whenever mainstream media is going to go after something, then I'm going to really question it. Okay. And they're really calling for the urgency of this since the shooting. Now, I think they couldn't decide whether to go with a black man or a white man or a Hispanic man. So they kind of turned that man into all three men. And the guy looked like his face, his very tan face, which could be Middle Eastern or black or Hispanic, was pasted on a white body. I have no idea why this is, but it was like they couldn't really decide what to go with. So they kind of went with all of it to make this guy look very universal. And I forgot to include a picture. Sorry, I was going to show a picture, but it just looked weird. Okay. And stripping him down, that was odd. And how did he get in there? That was odd. And they said he stayed from the night before. I'm sorry, but they sweep these places, immensely. And oddly enough, these things never happen at a Bilderberg meeting, do they? So you kind of have to question why so many attempts. Okay. Now, for the record, this conservative did not believe in the shooting that happened in Pennsylvania in Butler. And by the way, we never get to hear about that assailant, that little kid. he looked kind of strange, that little kid. Yeah, because he didn't do it and because he was a patsy. And I think that was a lie. And I think it was a lie to build martyrdom, because more people that got on the side of martyrdom wouldn't question how Donald Trump got in again if they could take it away from him in 2020 and slip in King Dingaling. Then how in the world did our vote suddenly matter? Why did Trump run again if he knew that they could take it from him? Never made any sense. This is why I got thrown off most shows when I asked that question. And then on top of it, people weren't supposed to question. So therefore have an event that builds martyrdom. And then the ear suddenly healed. Okay. Now there's not even a mark on the ear and no one even asks about it. No media ever asks about it. And if you've noticed, no one in the press has interviews about the Butler, Pennsylvania thing. So this conservative didn't believe it from the moment she was seeing it. Okay. So I'm just saying that I got a lot of heat for it. A lot of conservatives were like, they tried to kill Trump. And I'm like, no, they didn't. It was fake. For whatever reason, it was fake. Whether he believed it was actually happening, I don't know. Who knows? But his weird Secret Service with that rather plump girl, and the rather plump girl showed up again in this one. It's just, and she looked like she'd been on the job, like she's an extra in casting, and that she's been on the job for 5 seconds. So, can she really handle a gun and run? I don't think so. I don't think she's even a diversity hire. I think that she is just central casting. So, I don't believe in either event, just to kind of get that out of the way. Okay, now you can have a problem with that as a conservative. It's okay. I'm not going to crumble. When I was reviewing the facts of Butler, Pennsylvania, and reviewing the facts of this ballroom thing, nothing shakes out and nothing is what it seems. So let me go here. There was somebody online that was saying, look, there's got to be another reason for this ballroom. And I do agree. There has to be another reason. So let's kind of look at who's building it. This is a 90,000 square foot ballroom, and it's being added to the West Wing. Now, this is being led by Clark Construction. Clark Construction does the Pentagon renovations and upgrades, does the Smithsonian Institute, museums, U.S. Department of Defense facilities. Okay. Clark Construction is in the know, and they are specifically hired for projects like this. Okay. You're only going to have those kinds of people building this. The original person that was building, or the architect, was replaced by a company called Shalom Baroness Associates. They took over. Shalom. Okay. So they took over, and I thought that was kind of weird. And they do a lot of weird events too. They do a lot of things here. They're based in the United States. So they took over, and the main construction is done by so the infrastructure is done by AECOM Structural Infrastructure. And then they do a lot of government projects. They do all kinds of government projects, actually, a lot of military contracts and stuff. So then it was reported that there was a military-related underground construction tied to the project, separate from the ballroom itself. So not attached to the ballroom, just a whole separate project going in. Now you can understand the urgency. Now you're going to understand why we are building something, and maybe why we had the fake shooting to get the urgency going for this building. So the Presidential Emergency Operations Center, this is what Wikipedia says, located beneath the former East Wing, is dismantled as part of a site preparation. Okay, so the Presidential Emergency Operations Center, located beneath the East Wing, was dismantled. Getting ready for this, it'll be replaced by a new below facility. The cost to the taxpayers has not been disclosed. While this part of the project is top secret, according to the White House Director of Management and Administration, Joshua Fisher, Trump confirmed in October 2025 that the military is very much involved in this. building of this so-called ballroom. So several months later, Trump told reporters that the military is building a massive complex under the ballroom, and that's under construction, and that the ballroom essentially becomes a shed for what's being built under. So now we realize that it's all about what's being built below the ballroom and nothing about the ballroom. But the fake shooting, okay, which was ridiculous, as Vance got carried out first and then Trump didn't even look like he was surprised, okay? And that was odd, and it just was very, very strange. There was the guy eating the salad the whole way through. I mean, it was just a really weird, weird evening. And like I said, these things don't happen at Bilderberg. They only happen at stuff like this. So, and it had been boycotted for years, and then all of a sudden they have this shooting. So, and they're all there. Okay. So you're following me, right? This is very, very weird. So it's all about what's going on beneath, not about what's going on top. And that is how these stories go. And when mentalist Oz Perlman showed a written note to Trump while performing supposedly a mind reading trick, it looked like Trump was actually reading something on the note. It didn't really look like, it just was weird. The whole thing, okay? And then, of course, Erica Kirk bawling her eyes out, walking out traumatized, and saying whatever she was saying, get me out of here. I just want to leave. So you had all these weird things going on that the media was supposed to focus on. And the media is supposed to focus on the ballroom. But I do think that there's so much more going on here than that. Now, Israel built a data center very similar to the specs going in of this said ballroom. Okay, now keep in mind though that the complex underneath is going to be a lot bigger and a lot more vast. So then I was thinking about it and I'm like, okay, so if Israel built a data center to the same specs, are they building a data center on top? And there are some people online asking this question. Okay, so are they building a data center? Why would the White House need to build a data center there? It doesn't really make sense because they're building them all over the country. So then why not just say they were building a data center under the White House? I think a lot of people would go, oh yeah, because they're building them everywhere. So to me, it was kind of strange because I know that there was like, they're building a data center. And I'm like, well, yeah, but why? Why would they? Why would they need to? So let's actually talk about that for just a moment. Okay. Now, there's going to be a lot of chatter about the ballroom being a kind of like a monetization factor, okay, where you could host a fundraiser and you could actually get people to pay to go to this new ballroom so it'll pay for itself. And there's lots of people chattering about this online. And so they like to make this ballroom about that. Oh, Trump is gonna, monetize it, and he's gonna, use capitalism, and he's, blah, blah, blah. Or this is the other one. He wants his name on something that's like a legacy to last forever and ever and ever. I was laughing because I'm like, they love to say these things about Trump, okay? And they love to get into the weeds about demonization of Trump. So he has to have his name on something at the White House forever and ever to create a legacy. And of course, he's going to monetize the visits there. Okay. But honestly, monetization to me, so my next question would be, doesn't really require renovation. If you were going to do that, you could do it now. So that doesn't really pan out for me. But do you want to have your name on something? Okay, they could say that. But see, leftists are so stupid. I'm sorry, they're so dumb. They're like, yeah, that Trump, he just wants his name on something, and then that's where they stop thinking. It's like we can't think any further, so we're just going to concentrate on the hatred of Trump. I beg you to go a few levels deeper than that in thinking mechanism, because I think there's way more to this than just hating on Trump, because it's not about Trump. It's about who's calling the shots. So why do they want a center there? Okay. Trump has nothing really to do with this. So here is if it was a data center, let me tell you the upside of that. Let me tell you why that would be beneficial to have it at the White House. Okay. It's immune to congressional subpoena. It's protected from fire requests. It would be outside the normal federal IT oversight. You would have physical, inaccessible to investigators kind of deal where only certain people in the club could go in and do any investigation at all, since it would be under the White House, and it would be covered under executive privilege permanently. So there is a reason to put a secret data center under the White House. And so when they say it's a military operation, they could probably get away, unfortunately, with saying that because they don't have to disclose that it's a data center. And you can't do a file request to figure it out. Clever. I mean, you got to give it to him. This is clever. Not him, not Trump, the deep state. That's who we're actually talking about. Quit demonizing Trump. People just sound like morons when they do that. It's like it goes for any president. Don't demonize demonize the deep state. I mean, you can say what you want, but it's just when people only attack the person, I'm just like, look deeper. So anyway, I kind of wanted to go through that because there have been many, many cover stories through the years. Let me give you a couple. For Israel, they told the world that they were building a textile factory and that what they were doing was building the Dimona nuclear reactor. Okay, so multiple underground command centers were called administrative buildings. Unit 8200 facilities described as mundane government offices. Okay, they always go, oh, it's nothing to see here. And then underground data infrastructure, both under renovation and cover stories. So there's been a lot of cover stories. When they built the Manhattan factory project, they called it a factory, just a factory. That's all we're building here. When they built the NSA data center here in Utah, in my state, they said it was just storage. Just storage. Don't look here. Now, the CIA facilities were also called government offices. So, which specific Israeli, facility you want to talk about, or in the US, what you want to talk about? There's all kinds of different explanations that come up. And in history, you can find a big pattern of this. In 1942, that Manhattan Project, it was really what they were calling a nuclear weapons program. But I do have questions about that because I actually really question the ability to have what we're calling these ginormous nukes that could nuke a country. I actually don't believe that anymore. I think that it's been just a threat for 70 years to be a threat. But also, they were describing the facilities in Tennessee, Washington State, and New Mexico. They were saying they were chemical plants. They were saying they were demolition ranges. They were saying they were ordnance things. And so, yeah. And by the way, in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, they employed 75,000 people who didn't even know what they were building. So they just basically told them BS, and then they just built it and didn't even know. So the FDR Presidential Emergencies Operations Center, the one that they just dismantled to now build something bigger and deeper underground. So this was going to be a simple bomb shelter at the White House. And that's what the official story was. And this goes clear back, you guys. This is in the 40s. So can they lie? Yes, they can lie, and they do. But this was a sophisticated command center, not just a bomb shelter, and it was right under the East Wing, right? And then Truman, the White House renovation under Truman in 1948 to 52, the White House was, they said the White House was structurally failing and needed rebuilding. And they did a complete gutting and reconstruction. And then every floor was removed, entire interior rebuilt from scratch, significant underground infrastructure added, and Truman moved to the Blair House for 4 years. Now, keep in mind, this is when the horrifying horrifying, evil little CIA, three-letter agency, came into being, and got called the CIA with no budget and no oversight and no laws. So whenever I see somebody working for the CIA, you can only imagine how much disrespect I have for them and what a traitor I think they are, because I think they're horrible people. But with that being said, um, the White House renovation took place as soon as the CIA got their budget and as soon as the CIA was officially formed. Do you think that is some sort of accident or coincidence? Well, I'm not a coincidence theorist, so no. I'm going to go with no on that one. I think they actually outfitted that with technology that we didn't even know we had. Clear back then. And it was technology to bug the premises. It was honey trap. It was all kinds of stuff. Okay. So there was all kinds of things going on with the White House at that time, but they didn't just do that because they needed some sort of stupid renovation at the time. Okay. It was just exactly when the CIA came into being. Eisenhower Area 51 in 1955, that was built, and the official story was an NACA weather research station. This is just about the weather, folks, nothing more. So, yeah, and it was a U-2 spy plane development and testing. So, when civilians on the ground reported seeing unidentified aircraft, it was government officially blamed weather balloons. Do you guys remember the weather balloon from China that we just had a few years back? Okay. Anyway, so a weather balloon and of course, created the modern UFO cover story specifically to hide military aircraft testing. So then they came up with the little green men and really shoved that down our throats. Remember the 1950s movies about aliens? Of course you do. So it was really shoved down our throat at that point. No, I do not believe in little green men or aliens visiting our planet. So anyway, under Eisenhower, the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, the official story was the Air Defense Communications Facility. But obviously, the reality was much different. It is a huge command center, data center, you name it, 15 still buildings inside of a mountain that we know of. I'm sure there's much more, all kinds of things. So that was 1961. And then JFK Eisenhower, the Greenbrier Bunker. So, this was going to be a new exhibition hall added to the luxury Greenbrier Hotel in West Virginia. And then and I know you guys have heard stories about this because I even think there's a movie about this, the Greenbrier Hotel. Anyway, they built a massive underground congressional bunker, but it's more than just a bunker. It's also a data center. They kept it secret for 34 years. They complete with a Senate chamber, a House chamber, a hospital, a crematorium. That's creepy. And I mean, all kinds of things under the Greenbrier. And then, of course, Mount Weather Monitoring Station in Virginia. And this was under Nixon Ford. And that was the cover story, again, with the weather. So we have a lot of weather going on in the USA. And then the full shadow government facility was built underneath. That was Mount Weather. I think that's Virginia, right? And I think that's where LB's at, right? On YouTube. So Underground City could house, executive branch completely. They're just making a lot of plans. They also have a TV studio for the post-apocalypse broadcasts. So make sure their mainstream media pushes hard the false flag. They'll give us on that one. And of course, a power plant, a water system, you name it. Okay. So all these things. When Reagan did his continuity of government expansions, it was built as, the official story was various government building renovations, always renovating, either weather or renovating. So nice of them to think ahead, right? To want to make sure everything looks real nice. But this was actually an underground Pentagon. So yeah. And I could go on and on. When Obama built the NSA Utah data center here in 2013 in Utah, the story was this is a standard government data storage facility, 1.5 million square foot facility capable of storing all electronic communications, phone calls, emails, financial records of essentially every single American. Okay. Now, the description to the public was routine data infrastructure, but they were going all in on NSA. Think about this for 1 second, okay? They're building data centers all over the country, and they're calling them data centers. Do you think they could possibly lie about that? Do you think these could be future prisons for people that question the government? I brought this up before on the show, but because they're such liars in the government, you kind of, in the deep state, you kind of have to understand how they do things. Well, I have a whole history here of telling you that the lie and then the truth, and the lie is far from the truth. So what's the deal with this? I mean, what are they really building? Because if they could build the NSA Utah data center clear back in 2013, and it was to house most all of our electronic communications, phone calls, emails, and financial records, okay, not a ton has changed since then. So why do they have to add them now in every city to house said large data? Does that even make sense to you? Now that we have technology that goes down to the size of a little watch that you wear, a whole computer in your little watch. I don't have one. I'm just glancing at my wrist. But in that case, how is it getting bigger? How is the data getting bigger? Okay. And that's why I say that the data centers are a giant lie. I think they're a lie for in the future housing people just like they did in the 1800s when they built all those insane asylums, which I could do a whole show on. I've been going down that rabbit hole. Why did they put so many people in incarceration in those mental asylums, and for what reasons? A lot of them were questioning things. So do they have the wherewithal? I can't think of a better word right now, but wherewithal to do that? Yes. Would they lie about it? Yes. If the Utah data center could do so much, why would you need one in every city? It doesn't make any sense. Unless you needed to house people in every city that didn't agree with what was happening, the people that were waking people up, and they put them in these places, then I could see that you would need those in every city because you would need big buildings to house bodies. But people, okay, not dead bodies, but just people. Okay, so you would need facilities in that case. Project Bluebeam in the future has it where people are housed in these facilities, and then they have to basically give testimony on live TV that they don't believe what they've said they believe, and they don't believe in Christ. And then all of a sudden they have this total turnaround and they go full in on, I believe whatever the government says, they are my God kind of deal. That's Project Bluebeam, where people are forced in these insane asylums to testify on TV in front of everybody in the world that they don't believe in Christ and that they don't question things anymore to gain freedom. So you would need facilities in every city for that. Would you not? If you had enough people? Because I don't think they need it for the data. I think the big excuse is to raise the cost of living so that you can't own anymore and you can only rent. And that would make more sense because you're going to raise the cost of utilities. So you're going to blame it on water and you're going to usage, and you're going to blame it on high utilities. And this is why Larry Fink came out at the last big meeting, the Finkster, and said basically that you are last and that the data centers get first usage on water and electricity. They said that for a reason, because as they roll this out and they get these data centers working, if people don't question or go inside and find out what's really in there and what they're really doing with these data centers, then that's on us, the people, because we could do that and we could press the matter, and understandably, have something to do with the truth being known, right? So, are they re-education camps? Are they built for people who just they are going to deem crazy? They've done that before. So they've set up a system in America where you could just commit somebody. And because it's a commit, because it's the doctors involved, then everyone thinks there must be a problem. And no one questions. which would be really pathetic, but I could see it happening. So basically, when we had structural repairs, when they blamed it on weather, when they blamed it on renovation, when they're just saying, oh, data storage, there's a lot of things about that that are very, very strange. So I would probably go with weird on that one. On the data centers, I think we should question more. And I'm not hearing any of my fellow conservative hosts actually questioning what's going to be put into those buildings and what the buildings are actually going to be used for. They're going with the narrative spit out by mainstream that it's going to raise our cost of water and it's going to raise our cost of electricity usage. And so the cost is going to be more, but they're not going after the story as a fake. I am, but I'm not hearing anybody do that. So I know everyone loves their particular truth teller, but are they coming after that story as that the data centers are fake, that they are not what they seem to be at all? Okay. Because it's almost as if our conservative hosts in alt media, I hate calling it that, so stupid, but alt media are propping them up as actual data centers. And I'm saying that they're not. So, so there's that. And, you know, when the press comes out and they immediately say, you know, oh, hey, we had this shooting, and so therefore we have to up the urgency of the ballroom edition. I'm like, or the ballroom renovation or whatever it's called. I'm like, interesting. Okay. So yeah. LB says lobotomy was legal in Virginia until 1977. A lot of things were. So I think you're right about that. And I think there's so much more to these stories than what meets the eye, unfortunately. So, yeah. And he also says, I watched them build these things. There's a lot of floors and rooms in these places. Some are 5 and 6 stories high. And this is at Mount Weather. They do have big generators that run all the time. I don't know, just strange. Anyway, okay. And I'm with you. I think that there's always a reason that they prop up. They're really good at it. They've done it before, so you can't say they haven't done it before or haven't thought of it. They've been doing this for 70 years. So why would they not still do this? Why would they not come up with some sort of bunk reason as to why they're doing this? So I do think that it's hard for us to I think we take everything at face value for a reason. It seems like every single administration was used by the deep state to install something that they didn't want to disclose. And so you have to ask the reason for that, don't you? I mean, I think that would be honest. And I think that, Operation Gladio, Gulf of Tonkin, Operation Northwoods. I mean, all these things are all about deception. So is the government capable? Well, of course they are, and we know that. So, of course. There were back in the 1800s, a lot of people incarcerated that people don't talk about. They were incarcerated for reasons of laziness, being deserted, religious excitement, bad political excitement, grief, imaginary female trouble, seduction, disappointment. I mean, they did it for postpartum depression, menopause, disobedience. I mean, there was a lot of reasons. And by 1955, they had over 500,000, they said, in these institutions, by the way. That's a lot of people, considering the fact that we didn't have huge numbers and volume of people at that time. So, and if you take away, half were kids, you only had about 200 million people, and 500,000 of them are incarcerated. So people didn't really question why. I don't think there was a whole lot of questioning. And it did become bigger when eugenics was started. In the late 1800s, the eugenics movement that I've talked a lot about. So, and that was to get undesirables, right? And to get people out of the way. So then they had the Buck versus Bell 1927 US Supreme Court. So by law, they could sterilize, which is sick and evil, but they did it. And so, yeah, so there was no, honestly, there wasn't a great way to get people out of these as well. They were able to do the lobotomies, insulin shock therapy, spinning chairs, hydrotherapy, electric shock without anesthesia, just all kinds of different things that they could do. So the bottom line in the 1800s and early 1900s to mid 1900s were that you could be just undesirable, socially inconvenient. How many of you are socially inconvenient right now? Um, yeah, I'll raise my hand. I am. So definitely not invited to parties. So there are some things to think about when we look back and we realize what we were capable of and what we could do, and now what we could do now with centers. Because if they could come out and they could say, oh, these people are seriously crazy, because they don't believe in the government and the mainstream media, that could they put them away? Well, if well, in the CARES Act, what do you think King Dingaling and Hormala were very, very busy going and doing? And that was selling the idea that you could have, instead of jail, you could have these little mental health places built all over the country with our tax dollars, and that people could be put in these mental health facilities. So it seems to me they are building up a lot of large facilities for a number of people. And I'm not quite sure it's for data. And I'm going to guess that there's just so much more. I think later on, 10 years from now, we'll look back and go, why did we not see this more? Why did we not talk about this more? With that being said, I kind of wanted to give you just a little glimpse of what I've been looking into, because the ballroom story seemed a little strange, to tell you the truth, because it was like, out of all of our problems, do you really think the ballroom is something that's necessary? And then there's a shooting to instill urgency to build said ballroom. And I thought, okay, something's wrong here. And also, on the flip side of that, I was looking at an article that was talking about a splash pad in my state, the very popular splash pad for kids, that was actually not going to be able to be up and going this year because of water. So water usage. And so you're going to start seeing these things publicized that, oh, we couldn't do it because of water usage. When, by the way, can we just cure this right now? You dig for water just like they have for centuries. Water does not come from just snowpack and rain. So when you're praying for rain, it's like kind of ridiculous that you don't pray where to dig, because water has always come from down below. And I get so tired of saying this. If you go to primary water organization in California, you can understand kind of our problem with understanding where water actually comes from. And it actually comes from down below our feet. And there's plenty of water. It is forever water. It doesn't go anywhere. And I mean, it goes to us, but it doesn't end. It's infinitely amazing. And we do have water coming from these now for bottled water companies, but in our brains, we can't take the leap from, hey, there's a well that's 1,400 feet below, and we're getting this infinite source of water. We can't imagine getting more sources of water. You know what? Sometimes our little brains just don't want to think. So I guess that's only for bottled water, not for regular water. But they're going to continue the lie. They do it in my area all the time. And I have the most asinine, imbecile people leading my county. And they go, we just don't know. You got to have some water. So I think we're going to turn our poop water into real water. So they spent $1 billion on that. Yeah. The county commissioners spent $1 billion on poop water, going straight to us as regular water, because they're not smart enough to dig for the water. So I have that to contend with in my area of southern Utah, and it's horrific because these people are so stupid. I'm sorry, but they really are. I've never met such degenerates in all my life. They can't think and they won't think and they just can't do it. So, okay. Anyway, don't mean to be mean, but it's the truth. I know them, and so it's the truth because I know them and I know how they think. But in your area, wherever you live and you're hearing this, it's very difficult for people to grasp that water is down below our feet and that we can actually retrieve it. So the best thing that you could probably do is to find a water witcher person, a person that's really good at finding water and going into those deep wells and understanding how to find it and finding yourself a source of water somewhere. And I'll just leave it at that. Okay. Yeah, the Ballroom. I get that. Oh, water dousing. Yes. I'm getting messages. Sorry. A lot of people are calling the ballroom the Ballroom as far as like Baal and worshiping Baal. And I get it because scripturally we are in a spiritual war. So I'm not counting that out. I'm just saying, I think there's a lot of things that we're not looking at for this. And we're just not putting two and two together that there's something much bigger and deeper going on here. And they even coordinated a shooting on at this event to show us how big and how deep and how much and how deeply they need this ballroom. It has nothing to do with what's upstairs and everything to do with what's below. And why are they building it now? And you always have to ask yourself, what's really going on here with this? Because there's definitely more to the story. And sometimes I think it is really hard for us to kind of think this way and understand and really look at what we're facing here, because it's much easier to demonize a ballroom and it's much easier to demonize Trump and a ballroom. Is it not? I mean, quite honestly, people get off on it. Our leftists, our neighborhood leftists love this story because they like to concentrate on the ballroom itself. And the sad part of that is they're not thinking deep enough. We're just not understanding that there's way more to the story than that. And it's sad, but it's true. I mean, it's just kind of what we don't want to comprehend. So, and the guy, there's just so much. I'm going to have to break this up into two shows on the shooting itself, because I have a whole nother 45 minutes on this guy and the patsy that he is, and the funniest like knives. Was he going to knife everybody? Like, was he going to get that close? And here's another thing. Two things that the patsies always do that not a real bad guy does. Are you ready for this? You ready? Okay, number one, real bad guys don't write out manifestos explaining their motive. What are we in a 60-minute Law and Order episode? So, yeah, it's ridiculous. So they don't write out manifestos, but whenever you have a manifesto, you should always be questioning the event. Okay. And the government finds the manifesto within seconds. Also, I guess there's three things. Also, they always know exactly who the bad guy is, like in a single second. They knew who perpetrated 9/11 within minutes. Even though everything was pulverized, they knew, right? The floating passports, okay, that survived, but nothing else did, not even a door handle. But of course, we knew who the bad guy was because of the passport. Oh, that's a great piece of evidence to have. So there's always that too. And of course, the person gets in and for some reason is able to access with no one seeing it because we have an inept social secret service. Okay. Well, yeah, look at them. They're showing you central casting. Yes, there is that, the inept secret service. But on the other side, it is always how sadly inept they are in that moment. They just didn't know what they were doing. Well, I don't believe that, and I know you don't either. So there's always that. So they always have a manifesto that bad guys don't really do. And they are always covered in lots of guns and knives. and whatever else they've got on them. Okay. Um, so when a real bad guy goes in to do something, I would imagine they just have their gun, maybe a backup. But lo and behold, this is the trench coat with all the knives hanging and all the multiple guns. You guys remember the subway, right? The subway shooting that was fake? And the guy had like multiple guns. Wait, really? Was he going to use all of them? I mean, they have to make it look like they're locked and loaded, ready to take out everybody because they have to deem them a threat, like a big threat. And then they also you have to understand motive. Oh my gosh, if you don't, and sorry about this banner. This banner was from yesterday. I apologize on that. So if you don't like, sorry, I lost my train of thought. So if you don't position the bad guy into looking like he's some sort of major threat, because he was going to come up and knife everybody in this one. I'm sorry. Then they're just not threat enough. So you gotta make it look good, and you gotta make it look like they wrote out the manifesto because they just were itching and dying for everybody to understand why. A real bad guy could care less. There is no why. They just do what they do. So it always cracks me up. You can see this in the school shootings. Anytime you have a manifesto, look under the hood. It's probably fake. And same with this. Very bizarre. Very, very bizarre. And then there's the cases like the Butler, Pennsylvania one, where I didn't believe it. I thought it was so fake. I was like actually surprised people were buying it. It was weird anyway, and I know a lot of conservatives disagree with me on that one. But I just felt it was fake from the onset and said so. I got demonized, but never mention that guy again. Never mention the American sniper killer. By the way, I did a deep dive on the American sniper killing, and that was deep state. Did you know that, not to go off track, but did you know that the American sniper, what was his name? The American sniper that was taken out, he was actually asked by the Bush family to be security at the false flag with the marathon. Yeah, with that false flag. And he was asked to be, Chris Kyle, thank you. He was actually asked to be security for that. And several months before, when he was asked, I think he turned them down, and I think they took him out because Chris Kyle was too smart to go into a situation where nobody was there that day at that facility that he was murdered at and give a gun to somebody who was having mental problems, a young kid that was having mental problems. He would have never done that. He just wouldn't have. There's no way he would have. So the fact that he was taken out by the CIA or whatever three-letter agency you want to refer to, and then blamed on that kid, well, no one's ever heard from that kid again. When was the last time you ever heard a story about that kid? Yeah. He was shoved away into a mental asylum. He was used as a patsy, is what it was, because they could. I did a whole deep dive on that because I was, at the time, right after it, I was thinking there's something more to this story. Just my gut feeling was there was something more to this. And that whole place where it took place, that place was cleared out that day. No one was around. It was very odd because people were always there shooting and doing things. For some reason on that day, no one was there. And they said he just went there with this crazy kid and gave him a gun, and that he positioned that kid behind him with a gun. You think he would really do that? No one seems to want to question anything surrounding that event. But I do think they take people out like that. They always have some meaningful explanation, and they always whisk it off to like media just never even questions it anymore. I think this happens more than we think. And that stupid manifesto story, I wish they'd quit doing it because it's making them look stupid. Every time they come up with some manifesto, bad guys don't write manifestos. They just don't. So, listen, I'll do more when I'm feeling better next week on on some of the details of that guy and some of the details of the shooting. I'll do a little bit more on it. I don't feel great, and I was pushing through to try to do this today because I wanted to bring up some of the history behind all the lies. Whenever they build something big in the USA, they come up with a bunch of lies. Why do you think they're not doing this now? We always think in the present that they won't do it to us. And they've done it, and they've utilized every presidency to do this from the beginning of the 1900s with Colonel House as the little deep stater behind the president. They've been doing it ever since. And I know we don't want to recognize it because everyone has to have a hero, but I'm telling you that our heroes are engineered to be heroes, and that we are supposed to get very tribal and very defensive and look and make sure that we are defending our hero. But what if the deep state is utilizing this administration to bring us things that we would never consent to? Okay? Never consent to. I'll tell you a little secret about being in the media. So when a Democrat is in the presidency, this is kind of interesting. I don't think people realize this. When a Democrat is in, people will actually give more to shows like this because they feel under threat just because the Democrat's in office. And when a Republican goes in, especially for conservatives like myself, when a Republican goes in, people go complacent. And then they don't help the media on the right. I kid you not. It's a very weird phenomenon, but after doing this for 16 years, I can tell you this is exactly how it works. If Hormala, horse-faced little Hormala, who can't finish a sentence, who slept her way to the top, that's why we call her Hormala. She was proud of it. If she would be in right now, shows like this would be doing great because people would just feel the threat 24/7, right? But because Trump went in, and I knew this was coming when they put Trump in, because they get to decide who goes in. The deep state took Trump out, put Biden King Dingling in 2020. Okay, they hold the cards. They didn't just stop holding the cards in 2024. So when they put Trump in, I knew that it was going to be harder to stay on the air. So I appreciate you, Lauren. Thank you for saying subscribe, share, and support the show and keep this channel alive, because it's one of the last bastions of free speech that we have. As long as I'm continuing to do this, I at least know, because I know myself, that somebody can tell the truth. Your media, even down to people like me, right? People like me, not me, are put there. They're put there. And they're there to not question certain things. It's just the same reason why I've never heard the data centers being questioned as a lie, is because people like me in conservative talk, they don't say that. They don't say that. They don't point to the fabrication. They don't point to the fabrication of the administrations. All the administrations, whether they're Republican or Democrat, have been used to facilitate some sort of building of something that they lied about. So what does that tell you? It tells you they use both sides to do it. And if we don't recognize that now, then we're way too far into the tribal think to understand what's actually going on. Okay? I think that's a big, big problem for us right now. And I'm a conservative that's willing to actually talk about the right side of things as well as the left. Whenever I meet somebody on the left, it's hard for me, to be honest with you, to have conversations with them because they're so deep into the brainwashing on a whole different level. On the right, the brainwashing is very tribal, and it's very unified and very defensive. There are a lot more people, though, on the right that are willing to question the right and the left. But I don't see people on the left actually willing to question the left, their own side. That's why I think this is really important, that we question both sides all the time, and why I'm willing to do it. So if you want to support this type of media where at least you know I don't have an agenda, then please do. I'm asking you because it's the show is teetering right now. It's really, really tough to keep going right now. So I love what I do. I like going down into these deep dives. I feel like I ask pretty good questions. I need to ask even better questions, but I'm doing my very best to kind of look under the hood and question everything out there. And I always love your emails. So email me, Kate at katedalleyradio.com. You can also go to katedalleyradio.com. Also, get the ebooks. There's a couple new ones that are going to be coming out. One on organ donation, tells the truth about organ donation. And a couple of others actually that I'm working on right now. I have yet to title, but I just want you guys to have sort of like the information in print so you can keep these on your computer. One of the best ones I put out one on Disney and different ones, but the best one has been the one on cancer because we're all affected by it. And this one shows you how to deal with cancer. I have to say deal because I'm on YouTube. How to deal with cancer with no chemo. Don't do the pharma. Don't do the pharma way because that's a 97% death rate. So yeah, stay away from that. But this shows you the things that work and the things that don't work. And I really would tell you that you need this. Go pick it up at katetalks.myshopify.com. katetalks.myshopify.com. Go grab the ebook and make sure you have it on your computer. Share it with a friend. I don't care, but make sure you have the information because it's 14 and a half pages of what works and what doesn't work. And I really care that we keep you alive because we need more thinking people. If you're watching the show today, you're a thinker. So I appreciate you at least questioning everything that you're seeing. And the ballroom has nothing to do with the ballroom. Has everything to do with what they're really building underneath and why, more importantly. Just like the Iran conflict has nothing to do with going after Iran. It has everything to do with what the goal was in the very beginning, because there was no reason to go hit Iran. So I've talked about this on other shows, so I won't redo that show, but there's a lot to talk about there. It isn't what it seems. And there's a lot of things that aren't what they seem. So we got to get behind that. And I really, really appreciate you. I'm going to go take some more Cardio Miracle. Go to cardiomiracle.com/Kate. I know I'm actually losing my voice now. So I appreciate you. Thank you. Be faithful, be fearless, and go to the website, support the sponsors of the show because you get something for helping the show. Go to mypillow.com. Code word is Kate. Go to buy the mineral toothpaste because that helps the show stay on. Go try Cardio Miracle. That helps the show. So all these things help the show. And thank you, Craft. Great show. Thank you. I really appreciate you. And thank you so much for jumping on today and being on with me today. You can go find this show on audio at SoundCloud, The Kate Dalley Show, but you can also get it on video here. The Kate Dalley Show on Facebook, The Kate Dalley Show on YouTube, on Rumble, on X, and Kate talks about everything on Instagram. I post there as well. And I do post a little bit on X. Not a lot, but a little. So there you go. Please go and get the ebook on cancer at katetalks.myshopify.com and then pick up the one about organ donation that's coming out. I will be back on Tuesday. Thank you. Same time, live, and I'll read some of your comments and really, really appreciate you guys. Thank you. I know I'm not feeling great. You can probably tell, but I appreciate you tuning in. It was some interesting info, right? All right, you guys. Thank you. katedalleyradio.com.